All right, Erin. Well, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, what do you remember most clearly about the first couple of months leading tours?
Oh gosh, we're coming up on 11 years now in January, so feels like a lifetime ago. But we started off as River City Food Tours. And so I remember just being really excited to showcase the food scene in Richmond. It was right around 2015 when things were starting to blow up a lot. And we had one food tour on Saturdays, and that was it every week in Carytown. And it was awesome and thrilling. Every time somebody booked a ticket, we would do like a little dance in our house. It was very exciting. And, we'd get 8 to 12 people, we'd do a tour, and then we'd go home and we'd just like be on that high all week until next Saturday. So I just remember kind of the thrill of leading the tours and the bookings coming in and people kind of realizing, oh, this is an option now in Richmond. So that was a long time ago, but that was really fun.
So, it started off as food based. Where did the initial idea come from?
Sure. So we lived in Germany a million years ago, and while we were there, we started a free walking tour in English of the city we lived in. So these are a really common concept in big cities in Europe,
Mhm.
and there just wasn't one in our city where we lived. So Brian did a lot of research and wrote a script, and we would stand in the town square with a yellow umbrella every day at like 10 a.m. So that would be how people would know to find us. And however many people showed up within a 10-minute span of the 10 a.m. start time or whatever, we would lead an hour and a half walking tour in English of our city. And then at the end, you would tip your tour guide what you thought it was worth. And so we did that for about a year. And when we came back to Richmond, we said, well, we're not going to go back and sit behind a desk. That's just it's not our jam right now. But the free tour concept is something that we couldn't exactly sustain ourselves on. So right around then, the food scene was really, I feel like, starting to come onto the scene in Richmond. And we didn't invent the food tour concept. They've been around for a long time, but we thought this would be a really fun way to kind of combine those two things. And that's kind of how we came to be.
Nice. So, how long were you in Germany for?
A year.
A year?
We lived there for a year. We quit our jobs. We uh, were just renting an apartment. We didn't have any pets. We had no children. We had nothing tying us down. So we moved abroad with a 6-week tourist visa and a dream in our heart. I'm just kidding. And we were going to try and get a job teaching English while we were there. And we had to get health insurance and we had to get an apartment, but it was like a chicken and egg thing. So we weren't sure if we were going to be there for 6 weeks or if we were going to be there for the year, but we made it work and we got the year-long I can't even remember what kind of visa it was, but we were there for a year and then they were like, you got to go. So
I'm sure Germany was like, they're probably on top
the
of it.
rules are a real thing there.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're probably like, excuse me, your time is up. So do you miss Germany?
Every day.
Yeah.
It was an incredible year. We had a great time. I traveled to more countries than years old I was in that year. You could take the train everywhere. You could bike everywhere. The food was great. It was a hard year, but it just felt like a different time in our life where everything was just fun and I don't want to say carefree, but it was just very exciting every day. You never knew kind of what was going to happen.
One thing that somebody told me, which I thought was hilarious, is, oh, that was the BC times.
Yeah, before COVID.
Well, before children.
Oh,
both. Yeah, or both. Yeah.
They happened at the same time for me. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, I've blacked out. I don't remember the last 5 years. So.
Yeah. A previous conversation I had, we're talking about how they started their business like right before COVID started. And just collectively, I was like, oh, I forgot about COVID.
Yeah.
Like I forgot it happened.
Feels like a lifetime
Yeah,
ago.
I know. And it like fundamentally changed like everything about life today. So
Yeah.
What was interesting is you said the yellow umbrella. Do you have anything like that today with Discover that you do as a signifier?
Well, our actual LLC is Yellow Umbrella Tours.
Oh, really?
But about a week in, we kept getting phone calls for Yellow Umbrella provisions and said, well, that's not going to work. But we had already gone through the work of setting it up. So our LLC is actually Yellow Umbrella Tours, and a DBA is River City Food Tours. And then in 2021, we rebranded as Discover Richmond Tours because in part of COVID, we had to transition a lot of what we were offering because it wasn't only food-based anymore. And so we really wanted it to be kind of a broader name, and we wanted Richmond in the name because there's a lot of river cities. And so we rebranded because of all that. But no, I would say, I guess, with Discover Richmond, it started with our Discover Richmond boxes even before we became Discover Richmond Tours. But that's, I think, where that came from.
When you came back, was the mindset that you were going to run a business, not go into a regular job?
Always. Yes. It was always, especially Brian, who I think just wasn't built to be a corporate person in general. Can't sit still for longer than 5 minutes, always needs to be walking, talking, doing something. And so coming back, I think the idea was, let's just start a business here and kind of see where that takes us. And I have done some corporate stuff between moving back and now, but primarily just like the tours just took off. We had a couple different ideas, but we just love the city, and it was sort of what shone through the most of all the ideas we had. And it's just been almost 11 years of that, and I can't imagine us having chosen anything else.
Yeah, it's a huge testament to like your skill and just grit of 11 years. Just that's a lot of grind, and it shows there's definitely a market for it, for sure. When was, so you mentioned kind of like doing like a little dance on the first couple of tours. When did you all realize, like, what was the moment where you were like, yeah, this is going to work. This is going to be our thing?
I think we're still not there yet. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, we still do a little dance every time somebody buys a ticket. I mean, it is, it's still a small company. It's just me and Brian. And I mean, we have incredible employees, but it's still just it's a small family business. And so we're still excited when somebody buys a ticket. But I think when we started consistently selling out every Saturday in Carytown, and we said, what if we added a second tour, like a little bit later on Saturday? And then we started selling that out, and then we expanded to another neighborhood. And I think it just kind of was never the same after that. We weren't sure if this was just going to be kind of like a fun hobby for a bit. And people kept coming, and we just kept growing our options. And I mean, like I said, we're still excited when people buy tickets, but I think it probably took about a year for us to finally realize, like, this is a business. This is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So did you have a background in business or anything like that before?
I did not.
Yeah.
Brian did.
Yeah.
He studied business in college, and has just always been interested in entrepreneurship, and he's a data nerd and just loves all of that stuff, which I'm so grateful for, because that's not what I do. So he does all the business logistics, type A stuff of the business, and I do all the fluffy things and the tour leading and the comms and social media and all that stuff.
Well, that's definitely not fluffy. That's that's a core integral part of it.
But there are not
sure.
Google Sheets and formulas involved.
Yes.
So
Yes, that's for sure. And that's interesting. I want to touch on that later, because it does seem like that's like really successful founders that are married or together. It's usually always a left and a right brain type thing that, kind of has that cohesion that makes sense. So was that adding the second tour the catalyst for being the jumping ground to continue to growth? Was it just like, okay, now it's more tours, like that first time you added that later date?
I think, I'm not even sure if it was the second tour in the same neighborhood or when we decided we were going to try another neighborhood. And that was kind of, I think, the catalyst for that, because it was still just Brian and I. It was still just me and Brian. And I think, I'm trying to remember when we actually hired our first tour guide. And I want to say it took a couple years. And we hired them, and we were just like, oh, this is amazing. We can actually offer more tours. Like, if there's this demand here, we have a tour guide who can do this for us every Saturday. We can, offer 2 tours in this neighborhood and 2 tours in that neighborhood. And it just kind of that was the launching point, I think, was when we expanded to the other neighborhood, to our second neighborhood, and were able to hire our first tour guide. That was sort of that launching pad.
Mm-hmm. So what does that look like when you're hiring a tour guide? Is there like a Discover process? Like, they have to, obviously you're interviewing them, but is there a specific process that you want them to do it? Like, what's the Discover touch that you want, that you expect out of all your tour managers? So
when we interview, it is an incredibly informal process. We meet in Churchill on a picnic bench, and we it's, it's me and Brian, and then there's the tour guide. And so we try to make them feel comfortable, and we say, like, this is just a getting to know you process. We want to have a conversation with them and see how they are. Mm, Well, maybe they're under pressure because they feel like they have to impress us, but we just want to see how they are conversationally, because 90% of being a tour guide is just talking to your guests, right? It's just, I mean, you have to like be at the restaurant on time and, have relationships with the restaurants, but it's just engaging with the guests and making sure they're having a great time. And so we just kind of want to see what kind of a conversationalist you can be. And then after that, they have the chance to ask any questions. And then we do a little mock tour. We've given them a script ahead of time. And frankly, we say we don't really care about accuracy. We just want to hear how you tell stories. And so most of the time, it's a story about Elizabeth Van Lew, the first female Civil War spy who was born in Churchill. And so we, kind of make that a little mock tour. We hear how they tell stories. Then we say, just tell us any story that you know inside and out. It could be the plot of your favorite movie. We don't care. We just want to hear you tell a story you're comfortable with. And then we decide whether or not they're going to be a tour guide for us. It's very informal. It's pretty easy. You just have to be able to hold a conversation, and we want people to enjoy your company as you're showing them around Churchill or Carytown or wherever it may be.
Do you have a favorite neighborhood?
Oh gosh, I hate this question. It's like asking me who my favorite child is.
Flavor of the month.
Yeah. Well, Carytown's our OG, so it holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
I love Churchill. I love the history that's there. I love the food that's in Churchill. But I mean, I love all of my tours. But I think Carytown, probably just because it was our first, and it just, I don't know. It's just special to us. So.
Do you get like when you're off, when you're not giving tours, do you see a lot of people that are like, hey, what's going on? Like,
yes. And walking into a restaurant, you can see the terrified look on their eyes as if they've forgotten a tour was coming. And we're like, no, we're just here to eat dinner. Sorry to freak you out. So it's kind of cool to, I feel pretty cool when, the owner of New York Deli's like, hey, how's it going? Like, everybody's like, wow, look at that. Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah. Come on back. Yeah. So what's the biggest difference that you've seen, like being in the tour for about 11 years, you said now?
In January, 11 years. Yep.
Congratulations, by the
Thank
way.
you.
That's huge. What is the biggest change you've seen in Richmond?
Oh my goodness. That's a really good question. I think food specific or just in Richmond?
Just Richmond in general. Okay. Yeah.
I think,
but I would love to hear about food too.
Sure. So I think that, well, we'll talk about food real quick just because that's pertinent to the business. I think food wise, it has just gotten insanely amazing. It's always been good, but I feel like, Mama J's was here and put us on the map, and everybody was like, oh, I gotta live up to that. And I just feel like people started getting challenged to put out the best they can offer. And I just think the food scene is unparalleled for a city this size here. So, I mean, the food scene's always been good, but I just feel like compared from 2015 to now, I mean, I don't know why everybody isn't flocking to Richmond all the time to come eat out at our restaurants. Our food scene's insane. And then I think in general, Richmond has always been a really welcoming city. But I think Richmond, especially in the early 2000s and the 90s, had quite the reputation for perhaps being harsh, maybe a little, there were some places maybe you didn't feel like you could go. But I feel like Richmond now is just, every neighborhood has their own vibe. Every place you go is welcoming. I love everything about the city. You can be whoever you want to be here, and you are welcome with arms wide open. And I just can't imagine raising a child anywhere else except for Richmond, in a place that is just so inclusive of everyone. And I'm not even sure if that's a change necessarily, but I just feel like I see it more and more every year.
Yeah, it's definitely, we love Richmond. It's an amazing place. Is there anything that you would want to see more of in Richmond?
Tourists. I just don't understand why it's not on more people's radar. I love it here. We have the James, we have food, we have art, we have the outdoor scene. I love it here, and I don't know why there aren't more people flocking here. I'm not necessarily saying I want more people to move here.
Yeah.
I do love my like mid-sized city
Yeah.
feel. I love that. But yeah. I just think people are missing out. And so I just think bringing more people in from the tourism aspect, I would love to see more of that.
like, so doing these tours, what is the part that gets you most energized after the tour? When you see like somebody say, "Yeah, that was a great tour," or like specifically, is there anything that you love after you run a tour?
Yeah. I love I love hearing people say, I never would have gone to that restaurant before. I'm so glad you brought me. That is so cool. Or I've been wanting to come here for so long and I've never made it here. And I'm just so pumped that it was on the tour. I think one of my favorite things is going back to the restaurants just later on our own or whatever and having them say, oh my gosh, I saw somebody from your tour that you were leading the other day. They came back the other day and they said that they were here because they found it on the food tour. And that I think is one of the best parts about it is the restaurants seeing. I mean, we hope we're making a positive impact. We want to show off the restaurant and the food scene and all that. But I love when the guests tell them like, hey, we found this on your food tour. And they're just like, oh, we love that. Thank you so much. That
Love that.
I think that energizes me. That gets me excited. Although after the tour, I do need like 20 minutes to sit on my couch and not talk to anyone because it's a lot of extroverting. But yeah.
Are you naturally an extrovert?
I think I am. Yeah. I think I don't know, maybe an introverted extrovert. Like I need people for energy and to thrive and survive. And then when I'm done, I'm like, cool, I need like 20 minutes of just absolute silence. And then I'm good to go again, right? I can refresh pretty easily. But I think naturally I'm an extrovert. It's funny because Brian's super introverted. He's an extroverted introvert. He can make it happen, but like he much prefers to be kind of like a wallflower. So.
Yeah, I hear you. For me, I'm a extrovert only when I have to be.
Yeah.
Which is a lot if you're a business owner.
Right.
So your 20 minutes, I need about like 2 days to recharge.
Fair.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
And your wife?
Oh yeah, she's introverted.
Introverted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, and Ren, our daughter, she's like a wild child already. So we're thinking like, oh, she's gonna be an extrovert.
Oh yeah.
She's just off the walls, like jumping around. I mean, she can't jump around yet, but
if she could, she would be.
She's about to. I mean, like we got her the jumpy seat that you hang from the wall.
Oh my gosh, yes.
The Jolly Jumper, I think it's called.
Oh, I don't even know what
she
it's
was
called.
Going
yes.
insane. Like at first she was crying. She was like, "What'd you put in
What
me in?"
is this?
But now she's like, I'm like, you just want to be like 8 years old and running around.
Adrian
like,
spent, I want to say like 50% of his infanthood in one of those because if you took him out, he would get really upset with you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, she loves it now. So definitely introvert at heart. So running a business together for 11 years already is a huge testament, but like running a business together as a couple or being together is also a huge. What was it like at the beginning being business owners together, and has it evolved?
I am as opposite from type A as you can be. I go with the flow. I'm, just kind of like, you tell me what to do, I'm happy to do it. And Brian is very type A and very much about like logistics and order and all of this stuff. So it actually worked out really well because he had a lot of these ideas and I was kind of helping him. I would help him kind of like put them into order, but he had sort of like the big overarching ideas. And so that kind of worked in that regard. And he was the one who just like the reason that the business is so well run and efficient is I give him 100% of the credit for that because he is the organized one here. And like I said, I'm the one who kind of just like helps put things into perspective. And then I think just over the years, it's been more of the same, but we are definitely like the ideas people together, which is nice. We have lots of conversations about what things look like in the future, what things are looking like now. I think we're really good at bouncing things off of each other. And we are just, like you said, left and right brain. And so there's very little like combativeness in any way. And I really appreciate the relationship that we have both professionally and personally. It just works really well together for a business in general. But I think especially one like this that's, still requires order, but is like fun and I don't want to say whimsical, but it's got a little bit of both of our personalities, which is really nice.
Was that ever a conversation in terms of like who owns what? Because one thing that I find, also husband-wife duo with multiple businesses together is being very clear on guardrails. Well, not necessarily guardrails, but like realms of ownership. Like you're going to own this because a lot of times it's like, oh, well, you didn't say you were going to do X, Y, Z. So did that ever happen? Like a conversation, like you're doing this and I'm doing this?
I guess it did. I don't recall the time of us like sitting down and having that conversation, but I mean, he's the one who came up with the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I give like 100% of that credit goes to him. So it was more like, what do you envision? And, we would talk it out together. And he's, like I said, he's just the logistics person. He's the organized one. He's the spreadsheets, the data. So when it came to any of like the numbers and facts and figures and stuff, that was always going to be him. And I wouldn't say that the communications is 100% under my purview, but I would say 95% is. And sometimes he's like, hey, I have an idea. Like, let me hear it. Let's go. And so there's not really like strict guardrails or strict kind of like, who owns what part of it. But over 11 years, it's just sort of morphed into, I have my things and he has his things. And, if he needs me to like pay restaurants, I'm like, I need a refresher on how you do this with which restaurant and, that kind of thing. And, I'll teach him how to use MailChimp, like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I just think that's so. I think that's a really baked in for success is like being those opposites that kind of meld together, but also the conversation. So, would you have anything on top of your head that you would be able to give advice or tips to other entrepreneurial or business owner couples out there in order to be successful?
Always being willing to listen. And I feel like that is so cliche, but everybody has their thoughts and their opinions, and one is not worth more than the other. And so just always kind of being willing to have the conversation about what you have, what's your idea and what's my idea, and can they work together? Are they so different that it doesn't make sense, and what makes more sense for the business? And I think a big part of it is just kind of not letting your pride get in the way is a big part of that. Sometimes I think I'll have a great idea and Brian's like, well, let me tell you why this won't work. It's a great idea, but let me tell you why it won't work. And I'm like, okay. And then he explains it. And I'm like, damn it, you're right. Okay, fine. So it's just kind of like just always being willing to listen, to talk, and just not letting pride and feelings get in the way there. Because it's about what's best for the business in order for it to succeed. And in which case you will succeed then as, business owners and a couple and all of that.
So with all that, those conversations, sharing ideas, running the business, doing the tours, going on MailChimp, when is the off time where do you have a safe space of like, we're not talking about the business right now?
That's very funny. Brian always jokes that we work, 90 hours a week so that we don't have to work 40 hours a week kind of thing. And it's so true.
And no healthcare.
Yeah, what's that? So when Adrian is home from school, particularly on the weekdays, right? So like after we pick him up and before he goes to bed, it's not that long. It's only like 2.5 hours before we have to he's 5, so he goes to bed pretty early. That's a fairly no work zone pretty consistently. I don't know that we've like established those rules, but we try to put our phones away if we can. We just play games or we cook dinner, we go for walks and that kind of thing. Because literally the other 95% of our time is just kind of consumed with work and business and stuff. And so we want it to be the time with our kid that is a pretty like clear no work zone. And then he goes to bed and, maybe we'll watch a show or two. We'll talk about work, but it's not as intense as it is during the day. But, that can get a little gray sometimes too. But that time with Adrian is like really when we try to put everything away and just focus on him.
So with being so busy and having like a packed schedule, where's the motivation come from to continue crushing it and handling all the extra schedule?
Oof. Sometimes the motivation is there, and sometimes it's not. It's been a weird year. It's been a little bit quieter than maybe we would have hoped for, but this is our business together. We do not work outside of this. This is what we do. So the motivation comes from, being able to support our family from this, which is incredible. We feel super lucky. But even with like the down times, we have to still kind of like truck through and make sure things are happening. And so when we answer the phone, it's always, thanks for calling, or, this is Brian. Thanks for calling Discover Richmond Tours. This is Brian. Or thanks for calling Discover Richmond Tours. This is Erin. And we say it so often that Adrian now, if the phone rings, he'll go, Discover Richmond Tours, this is Adrian. And so we kind of laugh and we're like, well, the motivation is just from
At least it's that
him
repeating,
yeah, right. There could be way worse things, but I just think he's excited that we're tour guides and that we go to restaurants and stuff, and he loves food, and he told us he wants to be a tour guide when he grows up, and I went and cried for an hour, but it was really cute. So I feel like,
I love that.
Again, that sounds very cliche, but I feel like it kind of comes from him and, just supporting our family in its entirety.
I love that. So you also said that doing these tours, you need that 20-minute break. What else do you do to kind of recharge?
To recharge. Mm-hmm. Just like outside of this, I mean, I like to go for, we'll have just led a tour and it's a lot of walking, but like I like to go for a quiet walk. So go for walks, I go for bike rides. I have my complete silence, and then I'll like listen to an audiobook or something, or listening to music, but something that is not at all related to what I have just been doing. And just like being outside mostly, I think, is just sort of the recharge. We like to hike, bike, all that kind of stuff.
Do you find it like when you're walking alone, like, are you toward brain mode? You're like, oh, well, that's or we can talk about that. Is it hard to like?
I have to put headphones in and listen to something so that I don't do that, because yes, it is a lot like that. Yeah. So if I'm in total silence and walking, it is usually just going over how awkward I was on that tour, probably is usually what I'm thinking about. But so if I'm listening to an audiobook or music, I'm usually able to kind of like put that behind and just sort of be in the moment and not think about it for a second. And if I'm walking in a neighborhood that our food tour isn't in, right? So if I'm in Churchill, if I'm in Carytown, it's hard for me to turn that off. But if I'm walking around the museum district or the Fan or, I guess, anywhere else, north side, it's a lot easier to kind of turn it off.
Mm-hmm. Or does it start creeping in? You're like, maybe, like, no.
Yeah.
no.
Every once in a while, I'm like, oh, this is a great area for a food tour. And Brian's like, absolutely not.
So speaking of awkward, what was your most awkward tour moment, if you could remember?
Okay, 2. One was my fault and one wasn't. One was falling down a set of stairs, which is something that I have done. No, it's fine. Anybody who knows me is like, yeah, that's not awkward. That's just you. That's who you are. So it's like, it was awkward for me. It was embarrassing and mortifying. It was fine. I was okay. And then the other one I would say is just had a group many years ago who I don't think they realized what it was, and they didn't want to do the format of the tour. They just wanted to like hang and drink at one of the places. And it's like, well, we've organized this tour for you and we have 5 other restaurants that we want to, give you food at. And they just absolutely didn't want to. And so the awkwardness stemmed from me having to kind of explain to them what they had booked and them saying, no, we're good. We're going to hang out here. And then us having to call the other 5 restaurants and being like, so we're not coming. Really sorry about that. We're still going to pay for the food. But, and it was just, I'm sure it wasn't that awkward to anyone else, but it was very mortifying to like have to call the restaurant and be like, they've just decided they're not going to do the food tour that they booked. So that was, I still think about that one.
Have you ever to kick somebody off a tour before?
We came close once because they were just far beyond drunk. Like it was just so we had to skip an entire restaurant because we had to like take the whole group on a walk so that they could sober up before we went to the next one. But that was the closest we came, actually. I've never kicked anybody off, and I don't think we've ever had anybody else. But we give our tour guides that freedom. If they feel uncomfortable in any way, like they absolutely should do what feels best for them. It would have to like escalate pretty hard, but we've never had that situation. Luckily, people usually come on here and they're ready to have a good time. Sometimes too good of a time, but we can deal with that usually. But we've never had any really like combative people, so that's good.
So what does growth look like for Discover? Like what's next on the books, or like where do you want to see it go?
Is it really terrible if I say we're pretty good at status quo right now?
No, that's actually amazing.
Yeah, I think we are really happy where we're at. We have incredible tour guides. I don't think we are necessarily looking to expand to other neighborhoods or cities or anything. We did recently launch it's a bus offering. So we have a 14-passenger bus, and now we have
I've seen it everywhere.
I
always see it.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. It's called Offbeat Richmond History. And so we tell you kind of like the wackier history of Richmond. So not the standard Civil War history, but like William Byrd II had a sex journal, like that kind of thing. So, we'll occasionally come up with new offerings like that, but usually within the realm of what already fits what we have. So I'm not really sure that we're going to look to expand outside of what we have right now in our neighborhoods or city. We're really happy and love Richmond. And, if it continues to grow and blossom the way it has over the last 11 years, I can't say it won't ever happen. But right now we're really just pleased where we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, y'all are definitely crushing it. So when I think of tours, I mean, there's only one name that comes to mind.
Thank you.
which is great. So where does the inspiration come for like continuing to be like a better tour guide? Or are you kind of like, oh, I got it? Or is there another company like somewhere else? Or how do you continue to stay close to continuing to be better tour guide or give a better experience?
I've said this multiple times, we have incredible tour guides, and I will say that half the tour guides we have, at least, if not more, are better tour guides than I am. And I love watching them give tours and just kind of like going, oh my gosh, the way you told that story was so much more engaging than how I have. And so kind of like learning from our tour guides is really how I become better. And then reading, I try to read, I try to read everything, but I love like reading about the history of Richmond, and there's always like new things coming out. Like a new book about Elizabeth Van Loo just got published a year ago, so I'm reading that one and just learning more than I even thought I knew about her. And then sometimes I'll have questions about our script, and I'll go do some research on there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a really cool thing that I've never added in. And so we have scripts that all of our tour guides have, and it's like the basic stories that we want folks to tell, but we have some people who have done dissertations on Black history in Richmond, and we're like, wow, cool, like use that, tell the stories that you feel comfortable with. Like, we want people to be engaged. And so learning from our tour guides, from reading, and we learn a lot of stories from our restaurants too, and even from tour guests. A lot of times they're like, oh my gosh, I grew up in this neighborhood, and let me tell you about this like shop right around the corner over here. And so you're always learning something new, even if you're not intending to.
So what's your favorite story to tell?
It's probably Elizabeth Van Loo, just because I think she's such a cool historic figure. And she grew up in Richmond, and, she just, patriarchy be damned, she was going to be the one to like win the Civil War for the North, despite living in Richmond. And I think she's just such a cool figure. So I really like that. And I think that's probably my favorite one. Yeah, I'd say that one.
From like I'm always interested in like psychology and sociology, and I'm just curious, is there any interesting things that you've noticed from like observing groups of people at a specific amount of times?
Yes. So we do a lot of corporate events, and we do a lot of, bachelor and bachelorette parties and birthday parties, and we have public tours. And so you kind of come to know what to expect depending on what kind of group you have. If you have a group of lawyers, or if you have a group, a bachelorette party, like you sort of know what stories people are going to want to hear and which restaurants they're going to be most excited about. And it feels kind of judgy at times. Like you walk in, you're like, I already know what you're going to like better than you know what you're going to like. But doing this for so long, you just there are patterns. So you definitely start to kind of see different personality types depending on what kind of a tour you have.
So what's your favorite group to give tours to?
Public tours, because you never know what you're going to get, which is nice. So it's fun. I like I said, I think I'm an extrovert by nature. So I love meeting new people and then making them be friends with other people too. So I love kind of like that dynamic, and making introductions, which is really cool. Like at the end of a tour, if people are exchanging phone numbers, I'm like, yes, I've done my job.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I just would be curious to know, like, I love watching people, how they act and stuff. So that's really cool that you're like seeing patterns, and what you just said, like, I know what you're going to like for your, you're like, all right, now just listen to me.
Just trust me. Okay. Yeah. Just trust me. You trust me.
So with all this, how do you think you've changed the most with running a business and doing all these tours and interacting with people? Like, what do you see within yourself that has changed the most?
I'm a lot more comfortable at speaking in public in general. I can still like get butterflies and nervous and red and shy and all that. But I mean, I've been doing it for so long now, and I put on a face and pretend like I've been doing this my whole life. And I still fumble over my words a lot, but I feel a lot more confident in my ability to speak in front of groups, which is really cool because I was horrible at it. I hated it. So it's really helped a lot in that regard.
And one thing you keep touching on is like the story aspect. So it seems like you're more of like a storyteller, like more than like, oh, like obviously the tour guy is showing people, but the storytelling aspect is really interesting to me. Does that a lot of joy come from that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So the food tour is primarily a food tour. I always lead with that. This isn't a history tour. I am not a historian. If you're really interested in kind of like the nuances of the history and specific stories, like I have great other tours for you to take with other companies in Richmond, or I can direct you to museums and all that stuff. So the food, at least for our food tours, I will say we have other tours too, but for the food tour, the food is the first and foremost part, but we're a walking food tour. So we're walking through a neighborhood and there's so many stories to tell about that neighborhood. And so the stories of the neighborhood, I think, shape a lot of what the restaurants are too. And the restaurants shape what the neighborhood becomes. So it's the, back and forth, but like I love talking about our restaurants. I love talking about the neighborhood because a lot of people who come in, even people who live here, but tourists are like, I don't know where I am. Tell me about Richmond. Tell me about Carytown. Why is this Carytown? I'm like, I'll tell you exactly why this is Carytown. It's exciting because I love, maybe I just like telling people. I don't know. Maybe I like hearing myself talk, I guess, but I just love to tell people and like tell people stories. And I'm the reason that they've learned something new is exciting.
Have you ever done stand-up before?
No.
Yeah?
No.
Would you ever do it?
Probably not.
Yeah?
I'd be terrible at it.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. If somebody wrote it for me, maybe, but like I just don't think I'm that funny. So, no.
Yeah. I can see you on the stage doing something, like either a stage play or something. Like I could just
appreciate that.
I just see the vision. That's awesome. Was there ever a time that you ever thought about not wanting to do this anymore?
I mean, COVID was rough. But we thought of other ways that we could continue the tour business, and they were exhausting, but they were fun. And then they've kind of like shaped who we've become. So, I mean, every once in a while, like, oh, this is a lot. Okay, well, it'll be fine. I've never really thought about getting out of it completely, but there's definitely been stressful times. COVID was definitely, I think, the biggest test, but I think that was a big test for everybody. Literally everybody. I think everybody kind of like relearned who they were during that time.
With the storytelling aspect, one thing that you also said was like you love people making connections. Is there anything else that you've ever like thought of that you wanted to do within kind of that realm of making people make connections, but also the storytelling aspect? Because it seems like you can obviously do that through the tour, and then after the tour, people meet. And I'm just curious if you ever thought about like any other ways to continue making that type of experience where you're combining the storytelling, but also people meeting each other and making connections.
No, I really haven't, but I like that idea. That's a good idea. I love, I mean, no, I cannot say that I've ever had that idea, but there are a few really cool like meetup groups in Richmond. I know there's, Trying to Adult, and there's, I think, Miscellaneous does something like that. In Richmond Experience, they do the book clubs, and I love all those kinds of things. So I've never really thought about putting together maybe one myself, but I do love attending them because I also love meeting new people and kind of like that connection. But yeah, it's fun.
And what would you say is the hardest part of running a business?
Never turning off. Just kind of like always thinking about it, even when you don't want to be thinking about it. Looking at, weekends ahead, and you're like, why are there only 6 people on this food tour? It's going to be beautiful weather, people. Come on, book a food tour. Just kind of like never always expecting people to like want to do this, and not always necessarily seeing the same returns that you would expect in your head. So I think that's probably the hardest part.
And what's your favorite type of food?
Indian food.
Really?
Yeah,
nice.
I think so. I love Indian food. Like if there was one food I had to eat or could eat the rest of my life, I think it would probably be Indian food.
Yeah, I can crush some chana masala.
Oh my God.
And it took me a long time to figure that out because I would always get the basic stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh wait, let me try this. And chana masala like changed my life. So
Yeah.
that's all I get now is extra hot chana masala and extra naan. And that's all I need. It's like
Yeah.
I'm just eating chickpeas and bread.
That's
and it's
fair.
like, what else do you
Yeah.
need? You
I
know?
like the paneer generally.
Mm.
And I also gobi Manchurian kind of changed my life too.
Mm.
It's like cauliflower fried with, I don't even know. It's like, I want to say ketchup, but that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I
It's
know
like
what you're talking
sweet
about,
and
yeah.
spicy, and I love it so much.
Yeah. I that's the one food cuisine that I just won't attempt to cook because I just know
yeah.
I'll mess it up.
Yeah,
And
I've
I
tried
was
100
like,
times, and it's like, this is
I'll
fine.
just go up the street
I'm
and
just
just
gonna
get
go to
something
Tulsi,
good.
see if they'll sell me some sauce.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Well, I want to say thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it, Erin. And yeah, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you
for
so much.
today.
This was fun.
Yeah,
Thanks so much
sure.
for having me.
Of course.
Cool.